future is our past and past is our future. So like the high point of the centralization was in the mid 50s, in 1950s in the West. So because up until then you had like centralizing technologies like printing press, radio, television, where you had like, you have like one person, let's say some commentator or some media person or TV host telling something to the audiences of millions of people, but you have like one person, or let's say you have one person writing an article, like an op-ed in NYT, but like in the NYT, but like millions of people are reading it.
Hello, welcome back to Mtambo's Desk, a weekly podcast covering deep conversations on technology, philosophy, complex science, and civilization. My name is Duku Mtambo, and the following is a conversation with Jakub Szymek, a co-founder of Wezesha DAO and an author of Wisdom Enterprising. In today's episode, I will be talking to Jakub Szymek about his article, Stasi with stock symbol, under the Daily Balajisms series. And now, dear friends, here is Jakub Szymek. Jakub, thank you for joining me again today.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you that we are doing this podcast series together.
Jakub, in your recent article at Wisdom Enterprising, you wrote about Stasi with a stock symbol. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Okay, so Stasi was like the East German secret police, and they used this kind of technique of psychological warfare, which is called Zersetzung, and it kind of was like a way how to destabilize the decent, like how to kind of demonize them, or kind of like make them psychologically kind of less secure, like just I don't know, they would find, let's say, I don't know, their stocks messed up in their drawer, or I don't know, the trash kind of something like, it's maybe for today's purposes, gaslighting could be something similar. It's like when you are like kind of manipulating someone into something that is not really real, but in this context it was like trying to weaken the dissidents of Eastern Germany through, let's say, some psychological techniques of like so that's like Zersetzung and the East German Stasi as an example. And the stock symbol or ticker symbol, okay, it's like let's say just it's a metaphor for a company that is traded on a stock exchange. So it, for example, NYT, like New York Times, it's a company that is traded on a stock exchange. So it's like a corporate media. And so, and this concept is like just like putting these two things together, because like, okay, today you at least, it's kind of like a decentralized kind of not censorship, but it's like policing of the politically correct speech, like what is possible to say, and like what is the Overton window. And like so this kind of like prestige media, they usually do this kind of like thought policing, or like helping to kind of form the public opinion what is actually possible to say and what is not. And often they are like magnitudes, orders of magnitude wrong. Like, for example, just an example, like there was this article from a kind of prestigious media called Barron's. It's like from the UK, and they in 1999 they kind of said that the Amazon is finished. The article was like, it was on a cover page, and it was like Amazon.bomb. It's like the Amazon is like a ticking bomb that is about to kind of implode, and it will go bankrupt, Amazon as a company. And I actually Jeff Bezos just recently, tweeted about it like 1 year or 2 years ago, that just like the retweeted the picture of that article, and Amazon today, it's like it's like one of the biggest tech companies, but back then, like they were basically calling the company silly, or like their vision silly, and they thought that they will go bankrupt. And it's just like an example of kind of like bias against tech companies, that because they are like competitors to this like traditional media, or what Balaji today calls downstream media. So because they're downstream of internet, increasingly, like the real conversation is happening on Twitter, and they are just like providing wrappers around tweets. So the political articles are becoming like wrappers around tweets, in the same way as, let's say, the financial articles are like wrappers around ticker symbols, like so around stock symbols, and like sports articles are like wrappers around the score boxes, or like scores of the sports scores. And you have like similar examples like this. And so the downstream media is basically like the real conversation, let's say, is like Elon is tweeting about something, and then the media are kind of like criticizing him, or like kind of trying to frame it somehow. And and so this is this is like the current state. So, but with Twitter files, as we also discussed on like your on your podcast, with the like outside of this like daily Balajisms series, the Twitter files kind of showed that actually it's not just like online mobs decentralized on internet that are like, let's say, providing this thought police, or like kind of threatening people who are, or canceling people who will have, let's say, politically incorrect views, or outside of the Overton window. But actually Twitter was working closely with security agencies, and in the past you had such kind of like activities also in working like with security services trying to work with media, or kind of like influence media, which is like well established in the not recent history, also in the US, in the West. So it's kind of like a metaphor of like, okay, Stasi as a metaphor for, let's say, the security establishment, and stock symbol as a corporate media. Yeah.
Okay, that's a great point. And how do you see this idea of citizen journalism and the ability to exit evolving in the future?
Okay, so like imagine like the recent coverage of SBF, it was quite from the downstream media, or the prestige press, the corporate media, it was quite positive even after all this, like as the FTX fiasco. They tried to still kind of picture him as a kind of like effective altruist who didn't probably didn't keep his books in order or something. There were some technical issues, some kind of issue with like one account or something, and they tried to, because he kind of shared his worldview, or he at least kind of pretended to share their worldview. He even said this in this Vox kind of interview, that with the leaked conversation that the journalist provided of SBF messages with her. And basically he kind of said that something like, to quote him, like, we Westerners need to repeat this like woke shibudle, or what's the word, just to please the media, or something like that, just like so people like us, so we woke Westerners need to like have this to repeat these woke phrases, so people like us. And so this is like example of like media being like biased towards SBF, like not being really, let's say, imagine like what we discussed just now, like with Jeff Bezos and Amazon. They kind of, this kind of article, like putting him on a front page in 1999, it can be quite damaging. And he said that countless articles like these. It can be quite damaging if you are starting a new company. And compare this like with, let's say, SBF and the coverage of him, like he was on the front page of what was it, Forbes or something. Yeah, he's like, oh, wow, it's almost like an angel helping humanity. And citizen journalism is something like people actually online on Twitter, like these anonymous kind of accounts, like Autism Capital, like providing facts and like about SBF, uncovering some kind of transactions. And actually blockchains enable this this citizenship journalism quite a lot, because now you can actually you can like verify it on a blockchain. So it's like the journalist is or an activist or an advocate is providing some kind of narrative on top of data, where you can actually verify this data by just clicking on a block explorer, something like Etherscan, and you can check actually that the transaction happened, let's say, from this account to that account, and some funds were leaked, siphoned off, let's say, of FTX, and all these like citizen journalists are building bit by bit the overall picture of the SBF and the FTX fiasco or fraud. So they were like citizen journalists did a much better job on this issue of SBF, FTX than the downstream media or corporate media or prestige press, you can call them what you want. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Can you also explain more about the technique of Russell's conjugation and how it relates to this idea of corporate media manipulating information?
So it's a Bernard Russell, like a English philosopher, British philosopher, and he used this example. Balaji uses one example which is easier to remember, maybe, and it's basically the way how you can actually put a negative, neutral, or positive spin onto everything you want. So it's like. I sweat, he perspires, but she glows, and it's like the same kind of thing, like somebody looks like she or he is like sweating or a bit sweaty or something, but you can use like negatively colored, or not colored, but like negative spin, connotated or connotation, like a negative connotation, neutral connotation, and positive connotation. So it could be like it's also called emotive conjugation or Russell conjugation, and basically this is how you can manipulate the text and put any spin you want. So somebody could be like I don't know, righteously angry, and somebody could be like I don't know, just like totally out of his mind, kind of screaming something. You can just basically paint anyone in a positive, neutral, or negative light if you want with this technique or with this kind of tool, if you are aware of it. Yeah. So it's called emotive conjugation or Russell conjugation. So again, just like I sweat, he perspires, she glows. So you are like talking about the same thing, but like putting an emotive kind of spin on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you also mentioned the GPT Times, a project started by a beginner programmer inspired by Balaj. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so it's like some guy called Eric, who is a beginner programmer. He has actually done this, or he's currently doing this 100 days Replit challenge. So like programming every day, let's say for 20 minutes. And Balaji put up some kind of a call or a challenge to write something like using GPT-3 to write to create a website that would look like a NYT, like from the design point of view, but would kind of at least what the guy did, the Eric programmer, did with the GPT times, GPT times. So basically, he used like Elon's tweets to create whole articles, and now I think he has like a second, or I don't know which version, where you can combine like various tweets, and you can also choose like to write it in a positive, neutral, or negative style. So this is again just the example of the Russell conjugation. So and the GPT-3 just out of like one tweet, it can produce like the whole article and also some picture with it. So it's like you can kind of replace. It's just an it's like just an example, you know, like that. You could replace like the clickbait produced by downstream media with the GPT-3. So it's yeah.
Okay.
It's just work in progress, you know. It's just like yeah, it's a funny example.
That sounds like a very interesting project. But you also mentioned about Balaji's helical theory of history. Can you explain how that relates to this idea of citizen journalism?
Yeah, so he has this kind of idea that the future is our past and past is our future. So like the high point of the centralization was in the mid-50s, in 1950s in the West. So because up until then you had like centralizing technologies like printing press, radio, television, where you had like, you know, you have like one person, let's say some commentator or some media person or TV host telling something to the audiences of millions of people, but you have like one person, or let's say you have one person writing an article, like an op-ed in NYT, but like in the NYT, but like millions of people are reading it. But since the invention of transistor and personal computers and internet, when it became legal in 1991 to actually do commerce on internet, so you have like .com, and then let's say the invent of mobile phone and social media, so all and crypto. So these all are like decentralizing technologies, which are actually empowering people to communicate peer to peer. And so in this way, we are kind of getting back to the future or to the past, like where, for example, in the 90s, where the current establishment or the old like East Coast establishment in the US was the most powerful. You had this kind of trend in the 90s and in early 2000s of neutral journalism. So it's like the view of out of nowhere. So the view of out of nowhere, it's like the neutral. They have like this neutral tone, like this person supposedly did this, and they're like trying to discuss it in a like kind of a neutral tone. But now with the clickbait, with internet and social media, we are returning to the previous period of so-called yellow journalism, which is also like another word for it is like tabloid journalism or biased media. And we are kind of returning to the previous period where we were before. But like also you had like, for example, citizen scientists, you had, or something like a gentleman science before, or gentlewoman. Now you can have, yeah, it's like a gentleman science, meaning like you don't need to work, or citizen scientist, you don't need to work for some institution to do the science. And the same ways, I don't know, you could because you can, many things you can do on your computer. In the same way, also people are empowered to become like citizen journalists, just like say, yeah, just using their computers and some open source research. Yeah. So and the helical theory, it's maybe a bit more it needs a bit more explaining, but it's like so Balaji talks about it, it's like it's not just a circular or kind of cyclical view of history, where it's like yeah, we discussed it before, but it's like good men create, I don't know, good times, and the good times create weak men create the hard times create strong men or weak, good men or something like that. Yeah, so it's like the strong men, weak men, good times, hard times, kind of. So, and then you have like the linear progress of history, but the helical, it's like the combination of two. So you have some kind of cycles, but you are progressing on the z-axis. So it's like a helix. So therefore, it's like a helical theory of history. Then usually what progresses is technology, and technology enables people, let's say, enables centralization, like the printing press and television or radio, but like internet enables decentralization. And yeah, so that's like the idea.
Okay, Jakub Šimek, thank you for joining me on the show today and for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you, Duke. It's always a pleasure.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed listening to Mtambo's Desk podcast, don't forget to subscribe, give this episode a thumbs up, and be sure to come back next week for another episode. Until then, this is Duke Mtambo, and don't forget to do good always.